Thank you so much, Peter, for being here. I'm excited, really excited to be talking to you. You want to first take a few minutes to explain to us exactly what you do?
Right now, I'm into teaching. I teach project management courses at a university in Reading, Pennsylvania. I do podcasts, just like I'm doing here today. A lot of writing, articles that I publish either through my website or through Medium and LinkedIn. I've written and published two books, and I'm on a couple of educational boards, working with students and faculty to hopefully improve the programs. And I still do some consulting work on my spare time.
How long have you been doing consulting before that?
Wow. I would say probably 25 years in a consulting practice. Before that, I did a lot of internal consulting at the companies that I was at, making changes to various programs and processes and so forth. So if you included that in there, it's probably 40 years working in consulting.
Wow. And on an internal level, like what was the favorite company most favorite company you worked for? I don't know if you.
Well, that I actually worked for was Crayola Corporation. And you can imagine why. It's a fun company, dealing with children and children's products and so forth, but yet very businesslike for sure. Externally, I have a number of them. B. Braun Medical was one of my favorite companies. Also, let's see who else. Um, um, East Penn Manufacturing, who are the manufacturers of Deca batteries, probably most known to people that they're sold throughout the country, but they may not hear East Penn, they'll hear Deca. So that was a great company to work for. And there are some others in there. Samsung was a great company to work with and work for. So I have
Cool.
some real good favorites.
Yeah. As a kid, I also loved Crayola. I used to live in New
Hmm.
Jersey and like would go visit, like, you know how they had that was like just fun. We just loved it.
Yeah, everybody can relate to it. Growing up, you probably dealt with crayons and markers and paints and so forth. And then you have your kids doing it and your grandkids. And so it's just kind of a legacy type of thing. It's really a lot of
And
fun.
they actually have really good products, right? Like
Yes, they
it's not
do.
just something that everybody uses, but like
Yes, they
there's
do.
crayons and there's Crayola crayons.
That's right. Yep. Yep. I just saw that the other day. I was at a restaurant with my daughter and grandson, and he had the waxy kind of crummy crayons. And I'm going, you got to get him some Crayola crayons. Can't have
Yeah.
those. Yeah, can't have those crummy whatevers.
Yeah. Now, your consulting focus, like when you were in your own business, focus what on what type of consulting specifically?
Well, it dealt with all the business aspects of a company. I kind of focused on the operational side. So I was into the manufacturing or service sector, dealing with whatever the product or services were that the company dealt with. But we got involved in the financial areas and with certainly systems because most companies use systems today of any size, and there are a gazillion of them out there, and it's kind of finding the right fit for the company of what'll work and how they can best employ it and so forth, and then how it works with the day-to-day operations. But I did a lot of work on supply chain and productivity and cost reduction without slicing the worker numbers. I'm a big believer that you maintain your workers and you just continue to find opportunities for them. That's how you grow instead of cutting people here and cutting people there. After a while, they get a little suspicious about whether they're going to be next or not, and you don't get a lot of help from people in trying to make improvements when they think that their job is at stake. So I was never a big proponent of that. But finding other ways and other things to reduce costs and operations.
What I
So
really
yeah,
like about that is like besides for the really important fact that you said that they like right people afterwards aren't doing the work because there's stability and things like that, is that
yeah.
when you put a limitation like you're not cutting employees, but you're finding a new opportunity, you end up becoming much more creative and actually come up with much better solutions.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what Crayola did. We never let people go. When we were doing cost reduction, we kept them on. And of course, we would always fight with finance. Well, is that really a cost reduction? But then as the company had new opportunities and new growth, then those people got fitted into those slots and we didn't have to hire additional people. So we were growing with basically the same number of people. So it was more profitable, and they felt secure about their jobs, and were willing to help to make the company a better place.
That's awesome. On a personal, like business level, what was the biggest challenge for your business?
If I go back to 2008, if everybody can remember 2008, we had a mortgage crisis in this company that affected the lending, not just of home buyers, but basically of every business in the country. And that certainly impacted me and my company, being a consulting firm, because companies would look at what they considered non-essential services or services that they could do without. And consulting was usually at the top of that, unfortunately. So we had a tremendous drop in our clientele and revenue stream at that point. Uh, and what we were able to do was, again, to look at our cost cutting and how we could defer some payments and so forth. We asked all of our employees and, the company executives to take a pay cut, which we all did. So we managed through it without laying anybody off. Everybody continued to be employed. And once the crisis was over and things kind of got back to normal, we had a record of what people had deferred, what we called deferred payments, because we didn't just say, well, that's too bad, you lost 20% of your salary. So we paid everybody back. So they were whole at the end. It took a little bit of time to do that, but we were able to manage through it. And again, that was kind of my thought about not letting people go, because when you do that and then all of a sudden things pick up again, you don't have the people to
Yeah.
to to handle that work. And also you develop a loyalty. People know that you really care about them, and even though it's a short-term hit to them, so to speak, in the long term, they know they're going to make out. So we developed a very loyal group of employees who knew that we cared about them, and wanted to continue to work for our company.
Yeah, as you were talking, literally the word I was thinking was loyalty. Like that's exactly what it is. And then it also helps you like forever after. They're much more loyal and they're willing to do more for the business, and they're not like just running away like for every 10 cents that they get offered somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a word that gets bandied about, but it's a really earned thing. Whether it's with your employees, with your clients, your suppliers, whatever, is if you're dealing fairly with them and upfront and honestly, and they know what's going on and the reasons why you're doing certain things, and how it impacts them, and how you're trying to treat them well, then you earn their loyalty. When they find out that you're doing it and it's self-serving and they're going to be the losers in the end, then loyalty can be lost. It can be lost very quickly. So it takes a long time to earn it, very short time to lose it if you don't handle things properly.
Yeah, do you have any specific tips like from your experience of what can help with loyalty?
Like I said, being honest with people, being fair with people. Our employees, we paid good salaries. They got annual raises. They got profit sharing bonuses, even though they weren't part of the ownership of the company. If we gave a 10% bonus, it was 10% to everybody. Okay. The owners usually got a little bit more than the employees did, but they got very nice bonus. One year we paid a 50% bonus to our employees. Can you
Wow.
imagine getting 50% of your salary in addition to your salary in a year's time? And some of them were just stunned. They were like, are you kidding us? And it was like, no, we had a very good year, and it was because of the work that you folks did, and we want to share it with them. So, and not everybody can do that. Not everybody does do that. Also, our benefits. We had one of the best healthcare programs of any company. Our employees paid zero premium. I will stress that $0 premium for their health care for them and their families. And it was good plan too. It wasn't one of these cheap, crummy plans where you didn't pay much and you didn't get much. Because we were always shopping for the best for ourselves and our employees, but they paid zero. And when I tell people that, they say, "When can I sign up? When are you hiring?" Because healthcare is a very expensive thing, and most people are paying part of the premium, if not all of the premium that they get through their companies. So we were very, very fair with our people, but then we had expectations that they had to do the work and they had to perform, because that's what paid the bills then, and that's what allowed us to do what we were doing. So it was kind of a give and take situation. They did well, we did well, they did well, and back and forth, and back and forth. With clients, it's being honest with them. If you're a consultant, you don't tell them what they want to hear, you tell them what they need to hear. And sometimes that's a difficult conversation with a client. They don't necessarily like to hear, but they need to hear what's wrong and what needs to be done to improve it. But if you're not doing that, then you're really not earning your money. Okay. If you tell them everything they want to hear, chances are good it's not the stuff that's going to make them better. Because if they were doing it all correctly, they wouldn't need you in the first place. And they don't need you to point that out and pay a lot of money for that. They need to know what the problems are and how to solve them and how you can help them to do that. And if they're not willing to do that, well, then you end the relationship. Yeah, that's just the way it happens. Some relationships are not meant to be, and you move on to the people who do want to hear what they need to do, and then to take the appropriate action. And some of those, companies that I had mentioned to you early on that you asked if I had some favorites, they listened. They got it. They said, "Okay, yep, we're paying you, for your expertise, and we expect to get a benefit from it. And the only way you're going to get it is to listen to what the person who's advising you tells you and then do it. Otherwise, it's kind of foolish. Why even bother in the first place? Then just keep doing what you're doing and be satisfied with it."
Yeah, when you frame it like that, it's almost like you're stealing, but like it's a bit of a strong way of saying it, but almost like they're paying you and you're not giving them the service that they're paying you for.
Like, even though we were hired guns, so to speak, because we weren't there forever, we always took the attitude that when we worked with a client, we felt we were part of the company. So when they succeeded, we succeeded. When they weren't doing so well, we weren't doing so well. So it was a very personal thing to make sure that they succeeded and that the advice and the help that we were giving them was really working and they were getting it and the improvements were being made. And if not, then we'd have to change course because it wasn't just about the money. Anybody can be in it for the money. But back to that loyalty thing again, once that somebody suspicions that that's what you're doing and they really don't care or you don't care about them, then you're not going to establish that loyalty. It's that kind of that cash transaction only, and it is what it is. But I've established some really good friends, people that I talk to, on a fairly regular basis, even now that I don't work with them, who still remember me and say, I really appreciate everything you did for the company and for me personally and so forth. And that's what it's really all about, is to establish those relationships. Now, not every client's going to be your friend, okay? But as long as they respect you and trust you and give you continued work, and there's that loyalty that's established both ways, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, a lot of it, I like a lot of like you're coming back as to the loyalty, but then like also like the responsibility on both ends,
Oh,
both you
absolutely.
and as like the clients. Yeah. Now, if a business is going through a tough time, whether there's like another recession or crisis or just like things are not really working out for them, besides for loyalty and besides for the stuff that you've said previously, what would you recommend to them? Like what else do they need to really get through?
They need to be honest. They need to be honest about what's really going on, about what they're really concerned about, what they're feeling, what they're looking for, giving you all the information or data that's necessary in order for you to do your job. Okay. Don't hold stuff back. When you hold things back, how do you expect somebody to do a good job when they don't have the complete picture in front of them? And yet some people are like that, okay, because they don't want to share some of their little dirty secrets. But those are the things that are probably causing the problems and what you really need to know about. So there's definitely got to be an honesty in there. The other thing is we're creatures of habit. Well, every one of us, okay? We get comfortable in what we're doing and so forth. And when change comes, we really fight it sometimes. And you've got to be willing to make changes because again, there's that old saying, insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, that's true in business. If you do that, if you expect to just keep doing the same thing that you've been doing, why are you going to expect a different result? So there are changes that are necessary. Now you don't have to change everything, okay? Because most companies are fairly successful, so they've done a good job. But there are some things that could use improvement, even in the best of companies. And those are the things you look for, and you make the changes there, and you leave the good stuff alone. You nurture it, and you keep going with it. So I think that when you bring a consultant on board, get ready to make some changes. You don't know what they are, all right, and it's okay to question them and to understand and so forth. But at the end of the day, you got to make changes, and if you're not willing to do that, then don't get started in the process. Okay, really, just leave things alone because if you're comfortable and that's the way you want it, then so be it. That's the way life is. Not everybody is destined to have greatness and success. They could, but they're not all destined for that. And depends on where your comfort zone is and what you really want to do. And that goes back to honesty again, being honest with yourself about what you want and what you're willing to do to get there.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I like that so much. What do you tend to find is very common, like one of the first area of that like companies need to change first and like specifically in successful companies?
Well, it really depends, okay? But some of the things I just talked about or we just talked about, um, communication. A lot of times communication is not the best. And I'm a stickler on communication. I've been talking and writing about it quite a bit lately because we think that even now, we're communicating to a degree, but there are multiple parts to it. It's not just me telling you or telling you and your audience about something. It's that they're actually getting the message, all right, and hopefully they are because we're not getting feedback right now, and they're processing it, and they have an understanding of what it is we're talking about. And then if you're communicating with an individual, let's say it's a client and you want to make a change, that they understand what you're talking about, and then that there's an agreement at the end. Now, they may not 100% accept everything you say. So then you have to break it down and say and go back and forth, and maybe you have to make some compromises. You can't make all the changes you wanted for various reasons or whatever the case may be, but you compromise and you come to an agreement about what can be done, and then you go ahead and do it. So there's follow-up to it. Okay. It's not just, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and then they never get around to it. I had one client like that. They had a Six Sigma person who came on board, and we had done all sorts of work with them, came up with a whole list of things to change, and we even had them put the dollar value on what the changes were, and it was close to $500,000. And then I said, okay, we would like to work with you now to make the changes. And they said, no, 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 we got it. We got the Six Sigma person. Okay, fine. So about a year goes by, and I get a phone call from person that I was dealing with who provided some seed money into the work. And he says, they're very disappointed in the project that you guys did. And I said, well, what is that? I said, we came up with $500,000. They came up with $500,000 worth of savings. So what have they implemented? He says, nothing. And I sat there and I went, nothing? And he goes, no, they haven't implemented anything. And I'm going, well, how do you get the benefit of, the changes if you don't make the changes. I said, why are we even having this conversation? I said, that's ridiculous. I said, we offered to be there. Well, they didn't like this about the way you did something. I said, oh, well, that never came up in the discussion. And if they didn't like something, they could have always given us a call back again, compromise. I said, but to do nothing and then to say you're disappointed you didn't get any benefit, I said, that's craziness. That's absolute. But there are people like that. Okay. They're more worried about the process than they are about the end result. I'm more worried about the end result. The process, yeah, it's important, okay? But you can have a perfect process and at the end be disappointed in the end result. It's, did you really get what you set out to get? Did you do the things that were necessary, okay? And if you didn't do that, so what about the process? The
Right, like
project?
nothing's gonna happen without action, like literally, like you said
Yeah,
before.
but imagine that.
Exactly what we
I
said in
tell you,
that
you need to
insanity.
make 6 changes and you don't do any of them, and then you say, well, I'm really disappointed because nothing's
That's
changed.
it. You're the fault, Peter, because you promised us change.
You promised, yeah, and I don't. I tell clients right up front, okay, I'm here to help you, but in the end result, it's you that's going to make the difference. What you do or don't do, okay? Because if you depend on somebody else to do that, there's that old saying about give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Well, it's true in business too. You're teaching people to make the changes. You're telling them what it is. You're getting them to make the changes, and then they're doing it, and then hopefully that becomes part of their normal work and so forth. And when you leave, they continue to do that. If they stop when you leave, then you haven't been successful and they didn't get it because it's up to them. Okay. It becomes a way of life. And again, going back to Crayola, we did that on a regular basis. We were continually looking to make changes and improvements. Okay. To the point where there was one 3-year stretch where we saved so much money, we didn't have to take price increases on any of our products. Imagine that from a company. 3 years in a row, 0 price increases because they had saved so much money. Okay. Again, without gutting the company or doing foolish things that hurt or whatever the case may be. So if we could do that, they could, and that was before all of this stuff started with continuous improvement and Six Sigma and whatever else you want to call it. We just did it because it was the right thing to do, and our management was keyed in on that, and they pushed it and they supported it. So you can do it if you want to do it. It takes
Yeah.
work, takes effort, okay? But at the end of the day, it's well worth it.
Yeah, and end of the day, like you said, it's well worth it for you, for your business, and for the consumers. Like
Absolutely.
everyone just benefits from it.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Everybody wins.
Awesome. Okay, now before I get to my final question, where can we connect with you and learn more about you? Maybe get your books or read some of the stuff that you're writing.
Okay. Not maybe, where you can get my books. Okay.
I
Absolute.
like
That's an
that.
absolute. Yeah, get my books. Okay. First of all, my books are What About the Vermin Problem and Influences and Influencers, and they're both available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and probably any of the online service bookstores that you can find. I think I've got 15 or 16 that carry them. So, but Amazon, of course, is usually the big one. Personally, to get in touch with me, LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, Peter Christian. Look for adjunct professor, consultant, author.
Yeah, I'll put the link
Be-
right below. So
because there are quite a few Peter Christians out there. I just found that out the other day. Um, well, I knew that, but there was one that was really close. But I'm on LinkedIn, and then there is a way that you can click and say connect and talk and send me messages and so forth. I have a website, which is Pete, P-E-T-E, Christian Books. That's all one word, PeteChristianBooks.com. And that also has a place where you can send me a note and, talk about stuff and so forth. Or you can send it to my email, which is my initials, PH, and then my last name, Christian, and the number 53, so phchristian53@gmail.com. So any one of those three, you can send me a note and say, I heard you talk, or I, looked at this and I found something and I would like to discuss with you and whatever. And I'd be happy to do that and then see where the conversation goes from there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so now for my final question.
Okay.
Something like a little bit different than anything we spoke about, but what
Okay.
is something controversial that you believe in?
What's controversial that I believe in? That I make controversial?
The
Or
world views as controversial, but you believe in it.
that I believe in it?
Don't worry, you're not getting any hate for whatever you say.
Oh, okay. No, no, no. I don't know if I really, I believe in very basic foundational business principles. Okay. I see a lot of new stuff that let me, very quick story. I was at a function and Joseph Duran, one of the gurus of quality, was there. And he was surrounded by people, and all of a sudden the people left, and he was standing there, and I was eyeball to eyeball with him, along with an associate who was with me. And he says, "So tell me what it is that you guys do." And we went through. We were both working at Crayola, and we told him about all the programs. And my friend says, "And we do TQM, and we do SPC," and he rattles off like 10 different programs, all the acronyms. So Duran looks at us and he says, "Sounds to me like you guys have alphabet soup." He said, "I'm going to tell you why." He says, "Most of those programs are 100% the same with a little bit of a twist because somebody came up and said, if we take SBC and we did this tweak to it, then it'll be ours and we can sell it." He says, and then it becomes the flavor of the month. He says, "Pick one thing," he says, "and do it well." And yeah, there'll be little tweaks and things that you can learn, and you can add those as time. He says, "But don't stick with the basics." And I've always felt that. Okay. So I see all this new stuff that keeps getting added all the time. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, you got to use that program. Oh, you got to. At the end of the day, if you stick to the basics, and you follow the basics, you're probably 95 to 98% of the way there. Okay. So I don't know if that's controversial or not, because that'll ruin a lot of people's businesses with coming up with new ways to do stuff. But things do change and you find out what they are and you live with them and you adapt. There is agility in business, and that's one of the principles is the ability to adapt. You need to provide new things to your customers and new ways of doing things and so forth. Um, but that's just normal progression. I mean, look at business today versus 20 years ago, and you'll see lots of differences. Okay. So you live with that. But by and large, the foundations are still there. Okay. And if you hold to them and you work them well and then put whatever tweaks you want on it, I think you'll do really, really well. Now, whether that's controversial or not, I have no idea. But anyway,
It's an
you can
awesome
decide.
answer. I really like it. And I like what you said about like it really takes you most of the way there. And instead of like worrying about that last 2%, first make sure you have your foundations really in place.
Yeah, because if you start jumping to this program and that program, guess what? People after a while are going to go, "Well, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to do anything because in another 3 weeks they're going to come up with a different program. So why should I bother? And I'll just wait until they finally make up their minds what it is they want me to do, and then I'll do it."
Yeah.
You don't want that. You want people to be working at it. Okay. So you pick it, you work it, you reward them for it, you congratulate them, you share the benefits, and then you can add tweaks to it as you go along.
That's awesome. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate you
Yeah,
coming and
that
this.
was great. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and your folks.
Awesome.